Now, this concept around wholeness, I see it as wholeness is like the highest vision that you have for yourself. I don't know about you, but for a very long time, I would have this, I would see this higher version of myself, right? Of who I was going to be, or the best version of myself who's taking this best step forward. And that is the vision of wholeness. That is who I want to be, right? And how many of you out there are carrying some version of yourself that you want to get to and you feel like you're not there yet? I feel like that's a shared experience so much for all of us. And that comes from the not enough story that we each are carrying inside of us. If you haven't uncovered those feelings of not being enough, I really encourage you to create some safe space for yourself to explore, any of those feelings that you might be feeling where you don't feel like you're enough, because it's robbing you from your ability to feel whole. And so when we have this emulated version of who we are going to be, right, someday, that's robbing us of the wholeness that we are in this very present moment right now. And wholeness is really about recognizing that emulated version of who you are, this higher version of yourself, is actually who you are right now. But what's happening is that there are ways in your life that you are not allowing yourself to be authentic so that you can be in alignment with that. There's a way where you're operating inauthentically. And that inauthenticity is rooted in the ways of which you might be carrying these feelings like you're not enough, or you need to fix or change, or heal, or make something better about yourself. And I just want to be a voice here that says to you that the highest vision of who you want to be, being a better version of yourself, is accessible to you right now in this moment. But it's about asking yourself, what are your values? And are you in alignment with those values? And most often what you might find is how you're not operating in alignment with those values, that there are ways of which you are diminishing yourself. There are ways of which you are hiding parts of yourself. There are ways where you are not expressing your feelings and emotions, where you're not sharing your truth, right? And when we are in a place like that, and oftentimes that comes from different trauma in our past. And, for me, a perfect example is, I grew up in a home where I dealt with narcissistic abuse. And so I was constantly given very mixed messages about being good and being bad, being right and being wrong. And for the most part, I was always wrong, or I was always bad, or I was never enough for the moment. And it was very confusing, which also led to, falling into relationships with people that created that same confusion, where it just fed into that feeling of not being enough. And from those traumatic experiences, from that trauma, there's a way of which I had to recognize that there are all these different belief systems that I have that are just not in alignment. And what it was doing is creating all of these coping mechanisms for myself, right? And how this can form is through destructive behavior, really bad inner self-criticism, addiction, reactivity, self-sabotage. And all of that comes from the parts that are split inside of us, where we're not really addressing our truth, where we're seeing ourselves not in alignment with our values, where we're seeing ourselves as not whole. And so the path of wholeness is coming into your authenticity. And when you come into your authenticity, it's really a process of self-compassion, care, deep kindness towards yourself. And as you are doing that for yourself, you also can do that with other people. So much of my talk, my TEDx talk, the idea we're sharing, the core message of that was that the most revolutionary act one can do is to love that which they find unlovable. That is the process of wholeness. That is the process of integrating your personality with your values. That's the process of becoming authentic. And when we allow ourselves our authenticity, when we allow ourselves wholeness, we understand and have deep compassion, not only for ourselves, but for one another, and wanting to create more spaces, wanting to create relationships, right, that offer the safety of wholeness, that offer the safety of authenticity, because you begin to recognize how much more liberated you feel in yourself, how much freer you feel moving through your life when you are in alignment with your authenticity. Authenticity also is a huge, huge state that is important for mental health. I think about the ways of which because of that not enough story, because of those feelings of unworthiness, the things that we're harboring because of either trauma, experiences, right, imbalances, because of trauma that we've endured and experienced in our lives, it really impacts our emotional well-being, our mental health. And so again, leads to these destructive habits, self-sabotage, destructive behavior, addictions, right? It creates havoc on our relationships. And the number one driving factor for all of us as human beings is that we want love and belonging, because that's who we are. We want what we are from one another. And because of that longing for that love and belonging, if we're having to deny ourselves our truth in order to fit in, right? If we are denying ourselves experiences, like in my talk, I talk about the ways where for the longest time, I didn't go to the gym, right? Because I was afraid my hair would fall off my head, or I avoided the wind because it might blow off my head. I mean, I could tell you however many things of, things I denied myself, experiences I denied myself out of fear of not fitting in, right? Robbing myself the ability to be authentic. And even more so, if we think about all these different lenses of our lives, right? Me being a transpersonal strategist, I think about these different areas of our lives, whether that's our spiritual well-being, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, right? The quality of our relationships, how in alignment we are with our passion and purpose, and discovering that for ourselves. All of that is foundational and impacted with whether if we are living in our authenticity, or if we're living inauthentic in our lives. And so being whole or moving on a path towards wholeness, right? Allowing that self-compassion, giving ourselves permission to be ourselves, the ways that these different areas influence who we are. Having safety is really important to our mental and emotional well-being, and how we create space that's safe for others, right? Mental health, and I'm sure many of you would agree, is an area in our dominant society that is really underrepresented, undersupported. There's a lot of work to be done. And I think that is a huge mirror. It translates to the fact that we might carry a lot of shame for ourselves. We might carry parts of ourselves that we are harboring criticism or judgment around. And the inability of us allowing ourselves our own wholeness and our own openness is translated to the ways of which mental health hasn't really been prioritized in our society, but it's what we need most, right? And I can't tell you how much I appreciate this trend right now, or the conversation that's happening around self-care. What is that show? I love it so much. Parks and Recreation. There's that episode where the treat yourself episode. It's like they take a day. They take a day to go and just give themselves whatever they want, shop, luxuriate at the spa, go to the finest restaurant, right? Treat yourself, and prioritizing self-care. It's really such an important thing that we should be applying in our own lives, this aspect of self-care, because it allows us to have that openness. It creates spaces for us to feel more open, more vulnerable, right? In honoring ourselves and honoring our needs. For me, a huge part of self-care is, meditation, is having some alone time. We're exploring this right now in my soul storming group, where we are covering the 7 spiritual laws of success by Deepak Chopra. And the first law that we're covering is this law of potentiality. And it really explores how we can tap into our potential and grow that potential, and how we are that potential, and being able to create the outcomes that we want. And what Deepak talks about is, in order to tap into that potential, it's really important to create time for yourself, right? Silence. Time where you can actually do that self-awareness, self-reflection, diving in for yourself in order to uncover, right, those false beliefs and discover the potential that exists that you can tap into. All of that is around self-care, which is important to our mental and emotional well-being, right? And how we prioritize our mental health, our emotional health. So we reduce those moments, or those instances of self-sabotage, right? Where we truly can find or uncover ways, right, to deal with our addictions or destructive behaviors, where we can find the help we have, the help that we want, that we need, that we can find the path of recovery for ourselves. So authenticity is really important to that.